Welcome to the Teachers Talkin podcast, hosted by Dustin, Tatroe, and Ghazali, Abdul, Wahab. In this podcast, we discuss all things education and teaching, from innovative teaching methods to challenges to strategies and much, much more. In this discussion or roundtable-based podcast, we bring in educators from all around the world to talk about a variety of education topics so that we can support as many teachers as possible. We want this to be a place of inspiration, personal and professional development, and simply a place where we can elevate education together. Welcome to Teachers Talkin. This is Teachers Talkin, and this is an extremely special episode of Teachers Talkin. Ghazali, I'm so excited to be here with you today as we are celebrating our 50th episode. It's crazy to think that we are already to number 50. And we're doing something really special today as we are part of Podcasthon, where we are highlighting a special charitable organization. And this is really like a worldwide event. So today is different. It's a bonus Monday episode, which we haven't done before. So you actually get Teachers Talking 3 Mondays in a row. That's crazy. It's our 50th and we're doing Podcasthon. So, and just to touch on Podcasthon, the idea of it is that it's where podcasters release a special episode throughout a week to highlight a nonprofit that they care about. And so for 2026, Podcasthon is running between March 14th and March 20th. So when you see that hashtag Podcasthon on show notes or anywhere you see our podcast or any other podcast, if you click on that hashtag, it should take you to like a wide range of podcasts that are doing the Podcasthon. And so there are thousands of podcasts that are a part of this. And I am excited that we are also a part of it.
Awesome.
So
I'm all dressed up for it.
I know, and you're all dressed up, and I'm like, I'm putting on my teacher tutor hat and sweatshirt. But this episode is going to be very much Teachers Talking, even though we are highlighting a foundation. But we're going to really take some time today to reflect on what we've learned, how we've grown, how we can keep supporting educators, all while using this milestone to support something that matters, very much to me and my family, which is we're going to be highlighting the Les Turner ALS Foundation. And we're also going to bring you a very special interview in this episode. So I'm just really excited. If you can't tell, I'm like all over the place right now because I'm just really stoked to be recording this episode. And I'm going to say it now, but I'll say it throughout. But if you can find it in your heart, and if you have any means whatsoever to donate to the Les Turner ALS Foundation, the link to that is going to be in our show notes and anywhere where we post. Anything that you can help with, $1, $5, $10 is really helpful. And we're going to talk a lot more about that as the episode goes on. But Ghazali, let's start with celebrating. So let's celebrate 50. So to do that, Ghazali and I picked 5 episodes, 5 moments from the show that really stuck with us and shaped us. And honestly, in a lot of cases, made us laugh out loud in the moments and later on when we were re-listening to them. So, Ghazali, I'm going to turn it over to you to kick us off with our number 1 moment in our top 5 moments of 50 episodes.
Okay, here we go. Drum roll. The first top moment. So this is something that I think both of us agree on. We picked Joe Dale of season 2, episode 17. And the topic is unlocking language learning, harnessing AI for 21st century classrooms. And I think a lot of our listeners also agree with us because I think this is one of our top viewed or listened to podcasts throughout all the podcasts that we have done. So we've got a lot of feedback and generally there's a lot to learn from in this particular podcast. But for me, why I picked this was because, as you know, I love AI. I love to dabble in AI. And this episode allowed me to really geek out with somebody who is really in tune with on the cutting edge of AI tech. And so it was really fun going off script just to let the listeners know, usually our podcast is very well structured because it's all planned out by our dear Dustin here. But this was one podcast where I just had to go off script and just really talk about essence of AI with Joe. So there were things that I threw him, which were like boss level questions, especially things like if I could remember correctly, I asked him about the environmental issues of using AI, the massive amounts of water and energy it consumes. So totally nothing to do with education. But
Mm-hmm.
these were really, really tough questions that were, at the forefront of discussion when you're talking about AI at that moment in time. And I remember also discussing about the latest version of ChatGPT. I think was it's one of the latest version of ChatGPT, which by now is
Yeah,
totally
I think then it
blown
was only
away.
like chat 3 or something. So,
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so you can see how much AI has progressed over time. But of course, Joe brought his own expertise into the conversation, and he talked about things like how to use platforms like Mizu to create custom chatbots for with specific guardrails. How he programmed Pierre, for example, a polite French cafe with so that you could converse with the chatbot and learn the language. So that was really really interesting. So yeah, definitely this is my one of the ones that really stood out for me. And I think he even taught both Dustin and I about the importance of sound quality. That's why you see Dustin now wearing his headphones. That is Dale's legacy, okay, right there. Dustin,
yeah,
what do you have? Is
I think I agree with you. And, that episode, part of what that episode stands out to me is like Joe had been podcasting for a while and he actually did the editing for that episode because it was, only we were still just
yeah.
kind of babies at that point. And these headphones that I'm wearing were actually recommended by Joe. And like that episode, I put them in like my Amazon cart and it took me a while before I eventually got them. In fact, they ended up being a birthday gift. But
Whoa.
like I knew from that moment, I was like, okay, like the more serious we get, the more I'm gonna need. And like even moving our system from, doing like a Google Meets to now using a different program to record the podcast into script, all of that was like inspired by Joe originally on like how we could increase the quality of the
And
podcast. But
Dustin, remember what you were telling me? Okay, our listeners, we had to re-listen to all the old podcasts to select these five selections.
mhm,
And when we did that, Dustin was telling me about how he and I also agree with him. We could tell the difference in our sound quality if you listen to
mhm,
those episodes in season one and currently now. I think it's a huge difference.
yeah.
How did you change that, Dustin? What did we do?
Honestly, I think it came down to better quality microphones and a better quality system in being able to edit. Which because this system, yeah, I've got my snowball here. Finding Descript, which I had done a lot of research on different platforms and stuff, and finding Descript, I think was instrumental because we can edit sound here, we can edit the video here, we can edit the transcript here, we can embed other videos and things like that here, which was a lot harder to do when we were using Google Meet and then downloading it and uploading it to another program and doing all this stuff. And now we have just overall different quality. But honestly, I do contribute all of that research and trying to get to this point back to Joe, because if it wasn't for the conversation we had with Joe then, I don't know that we would have done some of these things. But aside from the logistical pieces with the podcast, Joe was the third time we had talked about AI, but it felt like it was really the first time that we talked about AI because it was so in depth. He had so much knowledge. I learned so much from him, and like that episode also helped me really start to get better at my own AI usage. And even though we went off the cuff in that episode, right, it was still very educational based. Even like we talked about, like you said, some of the environmental issues and things like that. But I think it was all relevant to the way that people use AI or don't or how. So yeah, I love that's an episode that certainly stands out to me. All right, moment number two. In moment number two, we went with an episode that actually wasn't a guest episode. It was just Ghazali and I. and that was the Boundaries and Balance in season 3, episode 32. And the reason why that one really stood out to us is because it was an opportunity for Ghazali and I to be vulnerable in the things that we have experienced as educators, where we were burning out and we were not having balance or sustainability. And it's very strategy driven in what helped us to find that balance. Thinking through those things for me, Ghazali, has really helped me a lot, because there was a time where I stepped out away from schools mostly for 2 years. And this year I'm back into a full school setting, and I have used all of those strategies to keep myself centered. This is the first school year in a really long time where I actually feel the balance that I was looking to establish. I honestly can't think of another year that I have had this level of work-life balance. And I really attribute that to taking the time to reflect on what I experienced over the course of my career, and course correcting over the last few years to try to like figure out what I personally need. And so having the opportunity of sharing our own personal strategies and how that lack of balance was impacting us personally really stood out to me. And that's why this was moment number 2 in our top 5 moments. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. It was, I think, one of the most visceral episodes because we had to use a lot of our own experiences to give advice. And I'm also happy that it is one of the episodes where I got a lot of feedback from the listeners through my LinkedIn
Mhm.
messaging. Yeah, who said that we have helped them a lot in coping with the challenges of the job and creating the boundaries, because that's really very very important. And
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of cases of teachers burning out when they don't limit the boundaries, and allow work to take over their life. Yeah, so
Mhm.
that is something that I think it was a timely episode lah. And of course I love just this to and fro between you and me. Yeah, so it makes it very very personal. Yeah, and I definitely put it as one of the top fives of our podcast episodes.
And to be clear, we love talking with our guests, and we also
Yeah.
love just talking the two of us.
Okay. You see, whenever we finish our podcast, right, we would continue talking for sometimes even an hour, about things. Yeah, yeah. So
So true,
we
and I
will do a
always
lot of
feel
catching
bad.
up.
I always feel bad because we generally record in my early mornings and your late nights, and I'm always like, am
Yeah.
I keeping him from like going to bed? But we're just like chit-chatting because we that's who we
Yeah,
are.
guys. So that's why you see me sipping a lot of coffee, right? Yeah. And
And
sometimes my
same.
energy
I,
dips
I
as
always
well.
have I always
Yeah.
have my coffee.
Yeah, yeah. You're in the morning.
Hmm. I wouldn't be able to drink the coffee if it was late at night, but I'd probably have like a Mountain Dew or something with me, or a bourbon. So
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I must have my coffee or my hot chocolate. Either one to keep me going. Yeah. So let's move on to our third top moment. Okay, so the third top moment I must say is our pick is Connie Rasmussen from episode
mhm,
2, season 2, episode 22. Yeah, 222. About the beyond the classroom walls, how outdoor learning engages and empowers students. Right. So why did we pick this one? For me, why did I pick this? Is because of Connie's amazing stories.
mhm,
You should really listen on and re-listen this episode. She talked about wild horses, and she talked about snakes. She talked about dead horseshoe crabs. Yeah, so it's amazing. It's amazing. So you guys have to re-listen or listen to this episode. It's all about bringing students out of the classroom, which is
yep,
something that we need to do more of, I think. Yeah. So basically, I still remember the snake story she was talking about, where she took students to an area that is known for snakes, and then some of the girls were absolutely terrified. But the guide actually managed to catch a non-venomous snake to show the kids and let them pet it, and all this. This is the kind of experience you can't get in a textbook,
Yep.
or in a classroom. So I think they return to school feeling like heroes. So it's the kind of feeling that our students need to experience more of.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
That is
Justin?
it. I love that episode because out it's out of the box. It's an out of the box episode.
Yeah.
And I say that purposefully because her stories are fantastic, and it really is about grounding students in experiences that you simply can't get inside of the classroom. Like just taking kids outside. It made me think about when I taught in LA and how a lot of my kids just like hadn't experienced anything outside of the city of LA. And so we used to go outside to read specific texts so that they could kind of like when we read Emerson, when we were reading things from Walden and Henry David Thoreau and other pieces like that, we actually went outside in order to like be in nature as we read about nature. And it just made me like, her episode really made me think about that and just how important it is for our students to have different experiences and not just be sitting at a desk inside of a classroom all of the time. And her stories were just absolutely incredible and inspiring on ways to really get kids to do something a little bit different. So yeah, I love that episode a lot. Okay, moment
Awesome. Yeah.
number 4, and really one of my favorite episodes, is from season 1 all the way back to season 1, episode
Wow.
6. Episode 6. And that is, again, one of our most popular episodes. It's with Kip Morales, and it's called The Heart of Education, Building Lasting Connections in Your Classroom. And as I was listening back to that episode, Kip's energy, for one, is captivating. And the way he runs a classroom and the way he talks about running his classroom, to me, is just incredible. But what I found to be really funny, and I never really noticed this before, is when we start, he talks about how he's going to tell us 5 keys to building relationships with students. And so he talks about that the number one thing to do to build relationships is it's all about the environment of your classroom and having this welcoming environment. He talks, number 2, about energy first and how the teacher's energy really matters every single day in order to build trust with students. He actually highlights those 2 at the end and says that if you don't do anything else in your classroom, your environment and your energy are the 2 biggest factors to building relationships and trust with your students. He says number 3 is positive pedagogy, where you really need to focus on dealing with all things in a positive manner, that the more negative you are, the more trust you lose with your students. And so keeping everything grounded in positivity is really important. And number 4, he talked about a decentralized classroom. He talked about how students don't call him Mr. Morales, they call him Coach, because he is the facilitator. He believes in the students being the ones to learn and to teach each other. So the students, like, he has his class in teams where every team has a learning facilitator, and he just kind of supports the learning of the students. He is not the main component of the learning, or he's not the one that drives the learning. The students are the ones that drive the learning, and he supports them. And he also talked about having class ambassadors, students who actually start and end the class, who get everything moving. Like, he doesn't even need to be in the classroom for class to be operating. But what stood out to me of these 5 key building relationships is that he never got to step 5. And as I re-listened to it, I actually had to go back and re-listen to it a couple times because I was like, where's number 5? Where's number 5? But we ended up going all over the place, and he never got back to what number 5 was. But he did talk about how you can take the different things that you're doing in school and make them community-based. And I think the thing that stood out to me in that episode the most was talking about teachers and how tired we are at the end of our days. And he says that that should not be the case. He said that that if you're the one that's tired, it means that you're doing all of the work. And so I wrote down a quote that stood out to me from that episode where he said, if students are bouncing out of the classroom at the end of the day and the teacher is dragging themselves out, it actually should be the other way around. The students should be dragging themselves out of the room, and the teacher should be the one that's bouncing out with joy. That tells you that the students are the ones doing all the heavy lifting and the work, and that the teacher is the one that's facilitating the learning. And that's just something that really stood out to me about that episode. But again, absolutely love the energy of that episode. And so that's why it became moment number 4.
Yeah, I remember that clearly. What stood out for me for with Kip was his experience. He's got tons of experience, and his stories resonate as well. They are very insightful. The one that I remember was about a student that made a disruptive bird noise in his class. So normal teachers, once a student does that, you're in defensive mode, right? You want to punish the child for being disruptive. But what Kip did was he stepped outside the class with the student, and he asked the student, "How can I help you? You made a bird noise, which calls a teacher over. So something must be going on. How
Mm-hmm.
can I help you?" Yeah. So then that built trust between the teacher and the student. So this is an example of building teacher-student relationship, which is so important these days. Yeah, and that's one of the things that he mentioned in his 4 tips, not five, 4 tips. But each tip came with a really poignant story that really nailed the lesson home for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I like that.
I did really enjoy him talking about how, well, if you're making noises, then you must want my attention.
Yep, yep. And so, what number are we at next? Number 5.
I've
Okay, number 5. Number 5, the choice that was made is Mr. Ryan Nicholas Leong from season 1, episode 10. And the episode is about caring for the whole child, prioritizing student well-being. Yeah, because we've done a lot about teachers. So this was one where the students took center stage. So that stood out for me. And I really liked the personality and how Ryan was he didn't hold anything back. He even told us a bit about his background and the challenges that he faced when he was younger. So he drew from his own traumatic experiences in architecture school. So he built his students' resilience by playing the role of a hypercritical monster, where students team up and must defend their designs against his grumpy, cynical feedback. So of course,
mm-hmm.
this is just role playing. Yeah, so he's role playing in the classroom. Then he also he built empathy during a design class when he walked in blindfolded and role played as a person with disability. And he instructed the excited students to guide him through the space they were designing. So imagine that you're guiding your teacher. I hope they didn't. They guided him properly. Yeah. And of course, the third thing that stood up was how he used the what he called the energy tai chi, where I think it's very similar to what Kip mentioned earlier. Where he playfully challenged the students to become his teaching assistant. Collecting markers, drawing on the board, channeling their disruptive behavior into helpful leadership roles. Yeah, where he can channel their energy in a positive way. Yeah, so that was something that I learned from him, and I feel that it is something that we need to refine or add to our toolkit as teachers, because it's not easy these days. When you're dealing with the this current generation of students who have many challenges that they face, and what he brought to the table was a way forward and on how to deal with challenging students. Yeah. How about you, Dustin?
Yeah, I think, the Ryan's prioritization of student well-being, the way he talks about student well-being in that episode is something that really stands out. And in fact, his episode is so good that later on in this season, you're going to hear from Ryan again as he talks about building edu universes. The things that stood out to me about Ryan is his creativity. I do think that this episode pairs really well with Kip's episode because they both do deal with focusing on the student first, which honestly is what teachers should always be, right? Everything we do should be student-centric, student-focused. But with Ryan, like his level of creativity and really trying to work with student well-being is what stood out to me. The role-playing activities, the gamification that he does, the way that he involves his students in the learning process, to me, is what really stood out about that episode and about chatting with him, you know, both on the podcast and off the podcast, because he's just a very creative individual who wants to facilitate joy in the classroom. And he has a variety of ways that he goes about doing that. And they're all just really based in some serious creativity. And that's just one of the things I love about him.
Nice. Yeah.
So those are our top 5 moments. But obviously in 50 episodes, you have a hard time. Like we debated back and forth. Should we do 5 each? Should we do a top 10? Like, how should we do this?
Yeah.
And ultimately we were like, honestly, I don't know if there's any bad episode that we have. So it's really hard to pick these out. So we decided to go with the top 5, but of course there's always some that fall just outside of that. And so we decided that we would each also have 2 honorable mention episodes. And so my first honorable mention is season 2, episode 26 with Rob Barnett. Rob Barnett is the co-founder of Modern Classrooms Project, and that episode is called Redesigning Learning, Hybrid and Blended Strategies for Every Student's Success. And Rob was on to talk about his book, but really we focused that chat about how we can help students to take more ownership and independence in their learning through a self-paced model of teaching and break away from the traditional model of teaching where we're not meeting the needs of all students. And that's really what that episode focuses on, is how do we meet the needs of all students, not just meet the needs of some students. And so it was really, really cool to be able to have him on to talk about his book, but also to talk about the model. And quite frankly, we have other episodes that we have also done with people who run a self-paced classroom. We even did an episode swap with Modern Classrooms where they posted an episode of Teachers Talkin and we posted an episode of Modern Classrooms Project. So being able to have, you know, a small partnership with an organization like Modern Classrooms Project is, to me, really, really important and special. And so that is why that episode stands out to me. And my second honorable mention actually was the episode right before that. It was season 2, episode 25 with Bobby Canosa Carr, who also was on to talk about his book, which is called Can I Go to the Bathroom and Other Asinine Questions That We Ask in School. And that episode's called Challenging the Status Quo, Education Policy, Advocacy, and Transforming School Culture. And what I love about Bobby's episode is it's different from a lot of the other things that we have done, in which we really have a conversation about the educational system as a whole and how broken it is compared to all other kind of, you know, jobs out there, all other workforces. And he talks about the loss of power once you enter the school. And he talks about how everybody, whether you're a principal or an administrator or a teacher or a student, all has these moments where they feel like they don't have any power because there's always somebody else who's above them in this hierarchy of power. And so he talks about these like common questions that we ask in schools that we don't ask anywhere else in the world, like, can I go to the bathroom? He talks about how, like, if you go to the mall with your kids, you know, and somebody needs to go to the bathroom, they just say like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. They're not asking for permission to go. They just do things. And only in schools do we ask for permission to do things. He also talked about the common question, what is my grade? And how the teacher equivalent to a student asking, what's my grade, is the evaluations and audits. Anywhere where we're assigning numbers and value within education, because again, you just don't see those types of things happening in most workforces. So the question is like, so why do we do that in education? Why is education so different from everything else in the world? He says that in education, we're actually conditioned to ask for permission, and we are not conditioned to ask for permission really anywhere else. And so I love that episode because it really is about challenging the status quo, as the episode title says that it is, and gives us some really concrete questions to be asking so that we can start breaking down that power dynamic in education. So those are my 2 honorable mention episodes.
Hey, nice. Great choices. My 2, okay, let's pick the first one, is the one with Dean Marolla, season 1, episode 12. And Dean is a principal. And what really stood out for me is how unique he is in his leadership style. He's the kind of principal that I would love to work under. So, and he had interesting stories as well. Like, for example, how he picked a candidate when his team and him couldn't choose which candidate to take into the school. They actually had both candidates play a game of basketball with the students, and then he asked the students, "So, which candidate did they like?"
Mm-hmm.
And he chose that candidate, which actually turned out to be the right candidate. I can
Mm-hmm.
say, because that candidate became an assistant principal, and then a director. That candidate is not you, right, Dustin?
No, it's not me. I was part of that process in saying, hey, let's bring him in to play some basketball.
See, yeah. And I also love the way that Dean actually would step into the classroom and take on the teaching role, so that he
Mm-hmm.
knew what teachers on the ground were facing day to day. And yeah, that's really, really cool, because it ensures leaders don't forget the daily struggles of things like lesson planning, grading, behavior management, that the teachers are going through. So I really, really respect him for that. Yeah. So that is my first choice. My second choice is uh, this really, really cool guy by the name of
Me?
Javier Payano. Yeah. Season
Javier
2,
is cool.
episode 28. He's cool. He's so cool that he's one of our guests that Dustin has actually gone out partying with. So he's
No, we
really,
haven't
really cool.
partied. He's not that kind of guy, but
You've met him, right? Personally?
actually, we have talked on the side, but we haven't had a chance of actually getting together. But we do, we both
Okay.
are in Chicago, so we
Yes.
have
So
we have we have text a bit on the side, and I do follow him on his human values website and his newsletter.
cool. So what I liked about this episode was we actually connected through music. So he plays the guitar, I think, and it's a genre of music that I could relate to as well. But basically, he introduces weekly human values through music
Mhm.
to his students, right? By simply writing a thought of the week on the board and refusing to explain it until the students finally asked. And then the impact was beautiful when they were struggling to play an E chord or on the ukulele. And another student leaned over and encouraged him by quoting the board, which said, "Hey, no grit, no pull." So the student kept trying and eventually nailed the chord. So it's this inspiring kind of stories that I really, really like from our guests. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that was one of the things that stood out for me with Javier's interview that we did.
Yeah, and Javier has a business called the Human Values Collective. I definitely recommend that people check that out. Every week, I think it's on Sunday, you get a newsletter email with the value of the week. And that's so, like, even though he's a music teacher, he really focuses on teaching students core human values. Every week they focus on a different value, and then that's kind of like the value each for that week. And so I think that's
Yeah,
really, really cool about what he does. And I love how
really
that
cool.
episode focuses on social emotional learning and human values in the world, because it's really, really important and probably not something that we talk enough about.
Yeah.
So, all right, so that
And
kind of wraps up
my
our celebration of our former episodes. So that was super fun to go back and be able to listen to the old episodes and find our favorites. And honestly, like there's others that we left out that, even Ghazali and I have talked on the side about how much we like, and we really toiled over like which ones we wanted to highlight in this episode. But there's a lot of good stuff out there with a lot of really great teachers. And so if you are, just kind of picking us up, I definitely recommend like starting from the beginning and listening around to the different episodes, because there's a lot of really good strategies and stories out there for people to share. So, all right, Ghazali, let's shift our focus a little bit and get into our Podcasthon portion of this episode. So talk to us a little bit about why episode 50 is a celebration, but also larger.
So episode 50 is a celebration, is a milestone for us. Here's to 50 more episodes, hopefully, and much more from here on. But I think when we reach a milestone, we should aim higher. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create more impact. So Dustin came out with the idea because he came across this podcaston, right? And so we decided to participate in the podcaston. It is a week where podcasters all release a dedicated episode to spotlight a charity they care about and encourage listeners to support it. Right. So we chose our charity. Dustin will talk more about it later, and why it was chosen is really, really heartwarming and at the same time appropriate charity. You will hear the story after this. For us, it felt right to pair a milestone episode with a moment of impact. So it's not just looking about how far we've come, but also how can we show up and help others, right? That's basically the reason why we started the podcast in the first place. It was about helping other teachers. Yeah. So we wanted to do even more now to spread it to a community of people who need that help through charity. Okay. And I won't ramble on much longer. I'll let Dustin go deeper into the actual reasons why we chose this particular foundation.
Yeah, so for our Podcasthon charity, we chose the Les Turner ALS Foundation. This is an organization that provides support and care to people and families that are living with ALS, and it helps to advance research. If you don't know about ALS, it is a really terrible disease that essentially takes over the body, and there is no cure for it. And so that's part of why we wanted to highlight it. But this organization is also very personal for me and my family, as just over a month ago, my mom was diagnosed with ALS. And I have lost other family members to frontal lobe neurological disorders that are all in connection to ALS. And so while this is a really serious disease, I wanted our 50th episode to be hopeful and real, while also pointing people towards a place that, genuinely helps others. So it's a little bit different from what we usually do because it's a focus on a disease and not on education, but we're going to bring it back to education in a little bit here. But just to name it, right, we're not here to turn this into an ALS explainer episode. We're really here to keep the tone celebratory and positive. That's what my mom would want. That's who we are, and that's who my mom is. She's a positive and hopeful person. But we also really wanted to be honest about why this disease and why this organization matters. So, with that being said, I am absolutely thrilled to bring you a recording of a short interview that I did with my mom so that you can hear directly from her about ALS and about the Les Turner ALS Foundation. And I'm just really excited for you guys to hear that. And so here is that interview. Hey, everybody. So today I'm bringing in a very special guest. This is Terry Tatroe. This is my mom, and she is joining us today as part of the Podcasthon as we talk about the Les Turner ALS Foundation. And just to kind of preface all of this, The reason why we went with the Les Turner ALS Foundation was for multiple reasons. ALS has been important in my whole family, pretty much my entire life. My grandfather, my mom's father passed away from ALS when I was young. And so this has just always been something that's been important to our family. And now, most recently, my mom has been diagnosed with ALS, and we're working very closely through Northwestern Medicine and Les Turner ALS Foundation. And so I wanted to be able to have a chance to bring her on and highlight her and, talk a little bit more in depth about what ALS is and how it impacts people and that. And so, Mom, I'm just like really, really thrilled to have you joining us on Teachers Talkin'. So thank you so much for coming in today.
I am just as excited. Thank you, Dustin. And happy 50th episode, son.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
We're very excited to be celebrating our 50th. So it's a special way to be able to do it.
I am too.
So, Mom,
well, thank you for having me.
It's great having you. So tell us, just to start, what is it that you want people to know or to understand about ALS? And, why are you glad that we're highlighting the Les Turner ALS Foundation today?
I truly appreciate highlighting the Les Turner ALS Foundation. ALS is I'm surprised at how many people still don't know or are not aware of ALS, which is called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And that's why it's ALS for short. And a very famous Yankee player, Lou Gehrig, had passed away from this when he was a very young ball player. And so that's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And do you want me to tell you what ALS is? What it involves?
Yep, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. It involves the neurons in your brains miscommunicating with the nerves, and then you lose the ability to speak, to breathe, to use your hands, your legs, your mobility is decreased. And currently it affects every part of your body except maybe your eyes. You will lose the ability. Sometimes there's no cure. Number one, there's no cure for this disease. And the people that are diagnosed with this disease tend to live 2 to 5 years. There are different strains, of course, and you've heard of different people living 10 or 20 years. So it's important, if you feel something unusual like I did, get tested right away, especially if you have a family history of a neurological disease like frontotemporal dementia or progressive supranuclear palsy or Parkinson's or Huntington's disease, Alzheimer's disease. They're all genetically related to each other. So it's important you get tested to find out what you actually have. And the earlier, the better.
And what is it that, tell our audience a little bit about what it was that you experienced that led you to, going to the doctor in the first place?
Sure. In November, I started having trouble with my left thumb. I went to put on some clothes and my left thumb wouldn't hold my clothing up. And I thought that was weird, but I had fallen 5 days before, so I took it that it was from that fall. Unfortunately, in December, my right thumb started feeling the same way. And in the back of my mind, I thought, this could be ALS, or maybe it's still from my neck when I fell. But on January 5th, I was helping my husband put the Christmas lights in boxes from outside. And when I came in to wash my hands, I could hardly move my fingers. They felt so weak, and it was hard to push the button down on the soap dispenser. I could just kind of go like this with my hands with the soap. And the same, I had to turn the faucet on with my arm. And it scared me a lot. And so I told my husband, we need to call Loyola right away to get in to see a neurologist to see what was going on. Now, my fingers, it kind of subsided after about 45 minutes, but it didn't make any difference to me. I was very concerned it was ALS or something else. I knew something else was going on. So fortunately, we were able to get an appointment in 15 days when I told him about our family history about it with my father, as well as his first two cousins. 2 out of 3 kids had ALS and died from it, from my grandmother's sister's children. And so we got in right away in 15 days. 2 days later, I had a EMG, and the very next day he told me that it was positive, or I was positive for ALS. So we had a cry fest that morning. Got a video chat with our kids. One lives in Indonesia, so we had to wait for him to wake up. And by 2:00 that afternoon, I sent a text to my brothers and sisters because I have 12 siblings, and it's very important for them to know that I got this and one of them could have it as well in their future. But by 2:00 that afternoon, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And I'm like, if I have this disease, let's move forward and see what we can do about it. There's no treatment right now that can cure the disease, but there are treatments that you can take that will stop the progression of the disease. And I'm currently on one of those medications to stop the progression. So my thumbs started in November, and they're still functional. Not to the full extent they once were, but they're still functional. So I'm thankful for that. So I really feel that the medication is definitely a good thing for me to be on, because who knows how fast it could have progressed without that medication.
Yeah. So tell us then,
Yeah.
what does, I know you. And so I've always known you
Yes.
to be nothing more than just an extremely positive and happy and joyful person. That's just the energy that you've always carried. And so, but with something like this, it's
Thank you.
hard, it's sad, it's devastating because, like you said, there's no cure. So what does joy or hope look like for you now? Like, how do you maintain that while going through this?
My whole life, I have always looked on the bright side of life. I have thanked God every day that I wake up. Even though I didn't get a horse in my life, I'm still a happy person. Um, so I think it's an innate belief that I am grateful for everything that I have received in my life, from having a big family and all that love, and for having my children, finding the man of my dreams, not really thinking he was, but he is the man of my dreams, and having my kids and now my grandkids. I am so blessed and thankful every single day of my life. And it just, like I said, by 2:00 that day of the news, I felt at peace with it. It's because I'm more of one, I don't worry about things to come. I take it day by day. I always have. And I've told everybody, before, don't worry about something unless it actually happens to you, because there's so much of life to live. And I'm grateful, very grateful to have the life that I have lived and what I have left to live.
Wonderful. And so with all of that, what does the support look like? What's helping you
Oh
through
my
this
gosh.
journey?
Family and friends are just immeasurable to me. I even made a little sign in my kitchen that says Terry's ALS journey, diagnosed January 23rd, 2026. And under that, I have all the pictures and cards and things that have been sent to me. And it's just so, I can't really do anything with the text messages or the social media messages that I've received, but they are in the thousands. And I am just overwhelmed with that. Secondly, as soon as I found out about the ALS diagnosis, I called up the Les Turner ALS Foundation the very next day. They were closed. I composed an email. I introduced myself, told them a little bit about my dad's history, and family history, and asked about counseling, because when my dad was diagnosed in the 80s, we went up north and we went to counseling, and I said that was the best thing that I ever did in my life, was to go to counseling so I could learn about what was to come next for my dad. What part of his body could be lost to this disease. And so you were able to prepare yourself for and be proactive for everything. And I find that my husband is doing the same thing for me. We are renovating our bathroom as we speak so I can get a zero clearance shower in there, and we're talking about redoing our sinks so a wheelchair can get under a sink, and a transfer chair and everything else, a ramp out front. Even though I don't need it right now, we are prepping for it and getting costs and stuff. But we have reached out to the Les Turner ALS Clinic. They replied to me, and they can help me with a lot of that stuff. A lot of that. They have products that they receive, and there are grants that you can get, and there's counseling available for you, and it's all free. Everything through the Les Turner ALS Foundation is free for the patient and the family. And it's very inspiring to have the nurses and the counselors who are so involved in the ALS research and things, and my doctor and it's just amazing at Northwestern. They have the Lois Insolia ALS clinic that is working in conjunction with the Les Turner ALS clinic inside Northwestern Medical in Chicago, Illinois. And it's a whole team. You get neurology with your doctor, you get a pulmonologist, you get nursing, you get clinical research, you get genetic testing, which I'm going through now, nutrition, you talk to a nutritionist, you get physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, social work, and of course the Les Turner ALS support team that supports all of that stuff too. And they will schedule you appointments as well with Northwestern so you can get to who you need to see at that next visit.
It's really incredible. They do so
It
much.
truly is.
Yeah, they do so much to try to help people. And the fact that it can come at no cost for people dealing with this is really remarkable.
Yes.
So,
And there are about 5,700 people diagnosed every year with ALS.
oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
At least not.
Say that again.
I said, actually, it's not a
No,
big
it feels
number
like a big
considering
number.
how many people live in the United States.
True. To kind of bring this to Teachers Talkin, we're here to, we are here talking about education, and obviously there's a lot that education can, we can do. There's a lot to learn about diseases like ALS, but we know that people just tend to carry heavy things in life. And so this is something heavy. And I'm curious, what message do you have for teachers or students or just other people who also might be carrying something heavy, but don't know how to deal with it, who to talk to, what to do? What would you tell them?
First, find the people who love you, who support you, and talk it over. People don't need to be counselors or anything. They just need to listen and to be a sounding board off of someone who's dealing with grief or pain or trauma or whatever it could be. Sometimes just to speak it to a person who has anybody, that's a great lift off of your heart to talk about it. Even if it's somebody on the phone, it's a great thing to do. Number 2, I would always say, always realize how special you are. You are someone who is loved. You have great friends. Even if you don't have anybody to count on, you have yourself, and you have done a lot in your life to get where you are today. And you need to continue on because life is for the living. And every day is a joy. So take it an hour at a time. Take it a minute at a time if you need to. But work your way through going what you're going through and give yourself grace that sometimes it doesn't work overnight. That's just how life is. Give yourself grace and love yourself and know that you are loved and you are wanted in this world.
Mom, I really appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about ALS. Before we end, is there anything else that you would like to say? Anything else you would like our listeners to know about ALS, about Les Turner ALS Foundation, or anything more that we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about?
I just want to let you know that ALS is not just a United States problem. It's a worldwide problem. There are ALS centers across the United States and across the continents all over the world. You can find someone who you to reach out. Start with your doctors and nurses and get help as soon as you can because the medications are just on the horizon for a cure. I believe that. My doctor told me. He said within 6 months or a year, there could be a new medication that could possibly help you even further. So there's always hope in this disease, even though, and all the people that help you. And I'm really thankful that Dustin, you put me on and I was able to share my story with people. And I love you. And I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you. I don't know if I say that enough, but I am very proud.
Well, I love you as well. And I'm really happy that we're able to use this platform to highlight you and your journey and this disease, but also this incredible foundation. And so I implore people who are listening that if you can donate anything, if you can donate $5 or $10 to the Les Turner ALS Foundation, that money goes a really long way. And you can find that donation link in our show notes. But Mom, again, just I love you very much, and I'm very happy to have you here. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Look at my little finger twitching. That's my heart, even though I'm twitching for you. Oh, it's so funny. See things with joy and laughter.
That's right. That's right. We can still.
I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure.
Mwah.
All right. First, Dustin, thank you so much for sharing that. I think your mom is such a wonderful person. She's really, really strong and she comes off as being very, very courageous. And I can't say enough how inspiring she was in that video clip. Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners have learned a lot about the condition. And I think we would definitely have helped the charity a lot. Thanks to your mom's interview that she shared with us. So let's bring this back to what we do here. Schools basically are full of humans, and sometimes those humans are carrying heavy stuff, right? Illness, grief, caregiving, uncertainty. So while still trying to show up every day. So we are not experts in ALS, and this isn't medical advice, but we are educators and we can talk about what support can look like inside the school community. Okay. And I think there are 3 points or buckets that we can gather straight away. So the first is to make schools feel steady. It's a place of predictability because life at home can be unpredictable, and school needs to have predictable routines when it's chaotic at home. And we must have clear expectations in school, and a calm consistency can be a form of care for our students. So that is really important to make school a place of sanctuary, basically. Number two is offering a quiet flexibility, right? Not tell me everything, but instead saying, I've got you. Extensions, alternate deadlines, check-ins, and options that protect the dignity of your students. These are really, really important to help them cope with their situation that they may be facing at home. And of course, connecting to the right support is really, really important. Counselors, social workers, admin staff, schools have systems for a reason, right? One caring adult can open the door, but the team can help carry it together. So I think these are the things that are very, very important for schools to have, these particular structures to help those in need. And especially if you have your special needs students as well in your schools, these are the things that are really, really helpful for them.
I think too, you know, everybody carries levels of trauma with them. And it's not even just
Yeah.
about our students. Like it is ultimately, right? The students are within our care during the time that they're in the school building. And it is important to be really cognizant of the hardships and the trauma that they're going through, or to even notice the sign that they are going through hardship and trauma, because a lot of times they don't tell us. And there's outward signs where a student's demeanor might be very different than it usually is, things like that. So I think it's important for us to look out for those signs, but also the adults in our buildings have a lot of trauma, and they are carrying heavy things. I know personally, I both lost my grandfather this school year, and then I had my mom diagnosed with ALS. And they were just a couple of months apart from one another. I also have staff members at the school who have had multiple hardships and loss in their family so far this school year. Like it feels like there's been a lot of death this year for both adults and students in my building. And from my position as a school leader, really focusing on that quiet flexibility with adults has been crucially important. Knowing what people are going through, being someone that they can lean on, and that is just an ear, not necessarily somebody to offer any level of advice, but just somebody who will listen, and to be able to offer flexibility within due dates, or like take some time, right? Like I had a teacher just last week who got a phone call in the middle of the day that a family member passed away. And I was able to go to that teacher and be like, please, like, do you need anything? And then go home. Like, take care of yourself, right? Obviously, I'm never going to force anybody to leave a school building. Like, if that's the place where you feel the most support and the most at ease, then like by all means. But also, I don't want to pressure anybody to try to like keep pushing through and doing their job when they can't focus, when they're mentally not there. And so that flexibility to me is a really important piece of dealing with people in schools when things are really, really tough. And I think we don't always know, but we have to be aware and look for the signs that something's going on with people in our building. So to kind of just bring that back to Les Turner ALS Foundation and ALS, for anybody who's listening who wants something that's a little bit more concrete, Les Turner ALS Foundation also has an ALS and Children Youth Resource Hub, and we'll link that website in our show notes because it speaks directly to how young people experience caregiving and how adults can support them. And so again, like I really welcome everybody to learn a little bit more about ALS and about the Les Turner ALS Foundation. Like I said, this is a really, it's personal, but also like because this is an uncurable disease, the donations are critically important to continuing research to find different ways to combat this horrible disease. And so if you can find it in your heart to donate anything at all, $1, $5, $10, $100, whatever you can afford, every single dollar helps that foundation with their research in continuing to find ways of not just supporting people, but hopefully ultimately to find a cure. And, things have gotten much better over the years. There's medications that help to slow it down. There's a lot of counseling and support in that way. But, this has been a decade after decade long battle. And to not have any type of cure for it yet, it sucks. It sucks. So we're really happy that we're able to highlight this organization today. Really excited that we've been able to bring my mom on to talk about ALS and about her journey with ALS and really share that with everybody. And we really invite you to pay close attention to what's going on in your building, because there's no doubt that in schools, there's people every day that are carrying something heavy, some kind of hardship, some kind of trauma. And we are the people on the front line to be able to help them. And so please keep your eyes and your ears and your hearts open to all of those things, so that we can always be there for the people that we are around the most. So I guess that brings us kind of to the close of this episode. So if you've listened to this show, if you've laughed with us, if you've learned with us, if you have felt a little less alone because of it, consider turning episode 50 into impact. Like I said, if you're able, please donate any amount to the Les Turner ALS Foundation. We'll have that donation link in our show notes, but you can find it at lesturners.org/make-a-donation /. And that is where you can donate there. And if donating isn't possible right now, simply sharing this episode still really helps, because it's about making more and more people aware. And the awareness is the most important part. So I am truly grateful to everybody who listens to this podcast. Really, really grateful to those who listen to this particular episode. I'm also grateful for Podcasthon for giving the opportunity for podcasters to talk about charitable organizations and bring different charities to the front line to their listeners. Hopefully, through this type of episode and this discussion, we can continue to bring more and more awareness and more support to organizations that really truly matter in making this world a better, safer, and healthier place. So just appreciate all of our listeners. Ghazali, I really, really appreciate you having opportunities to spend time with you, to talk about both fun things when it comes to education, as well as really difficult and challenging things when it comes to education, and just being able to have this conversation on an ongoing basis. It really, really matters to me. So I really am grateful to you as a co-host and partner in this work. And I'm very grateful that this was the organization that we decided to spotlight in this episode. So thank you. Thank you for being you, sir.
My pleasure.
To our listeners, as always, thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of 50 episodes of Teachers Talkin. Remember to subscribe, leave reviews. We really want to hear from you, especially this episode. What were some of your favorite moments from Teachers Talkin through the first 50? Are you dealing with hardship that, do you need someone to lean on? We are here for you. But we would love for you to share this episode, to review it, to rate it, share it with fellow educators, and just share it more broadly. And if you would like to be a guest on Teachers Talkin, we are always looking for educators, leaders, teachers, parents, students, former students, to come and talk about your experiences, your strategies, your stories. We just want to continue to elevate education and the voices of people in education. So please, if you'd like to be a guest, you don't need to be an expert, just passionate, just somebody who wants to come on and talk with us for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, who knows? We're very casual in that way. But please, if you're interested in being a guest, we would love to have you. You can fill out the form in our show notes. Ghazali, any final words before we close out of episode 50?
Man, it's been a ride. It's been a wild ride. Enjoyable being with you. always looking forward to these sessions, always making time because it's something that, I always look forward to. Uh, it's been more of fun. I see it more as fun, entertaining, and helpful, I hope, to others. So that
Yeah.
kills many birds with one stone. Yeah. I always enjoy spending time with my friend Dustin here. And I think it's something that is important, bearing in mind what's going on in the world today. I think when we can bring divides closer together and heal issues, it's something that's much needed today. And I'm always glad to see my friend Dustin here to have a session and just drill out a podcast together. It helps to make me forget what's going on in the world right now. Yeah.
I totally agree. I tend to forget all the things that are going on around outside of us in the time that we're here. And in the times that I'm able to put this on in my ears while I'm doing yard work or whatever, housework, and I listen to our own episodes. It was weird at first, like listening to my own voice, but I think I've gotten used to it now. And I love listening to the things that our guests tend to that our guests share. I there's so much insight and it is fun. It is fun. So always happy to be here. All right, everybody. Thanks a ton. This concludes episode 50 of Teachers Talkin. So donate to Les Turner ALS Foundation if you can. And keep on teaching. Be well, good people.
Tick